The sky above Asgard had turned the color of ash, and the wind carried a low, endless groan as the final tremors of Ragnarok rolled through the realms. Gold towers cracked in the distance, frozen rain drifted sideways, and every bridge between worlds shook like a rope pulled too tight. In that ruined light, Loki stood alone inside a broken forge under the palace, and he was not thinking about honor, glory, or the old songs. He was thinking about the one thing that mattered now, which was how to keep the worlds from falling apart before fate finished its cruel work. While Loki worked, the central danger became clear to everyone who still breathed in the halls of Asgard. Ragnarok was not only a war, and it was not only a storm. It was a collapse of order where every realm was slipping loose from the roots of Yggdrasil, the great world tree that held all lands together. If the roots failed, then the realms would drift apart, and the gods would lose their home, their names, and their place in every story that had ever been told. Loki knew this, and so did Odin. Odin was the oldest king among the gods, a man with long white hair and a thick gray beard, and he carried a deep calm that came from seeing too much. The first answer came from a shock like thunder through the floor. Thor entered the forge, and the whole chamber seemed to narrow around him. Thor was a man, and his hair was bright red, thick, and wild, and he carried the strong, open face of a warrior who had never learned to hide his feelings well. He wanted battle, truth, and a chance to protect the people of the realms with clear strength, not tricks. He had always distrusted Loki, because Loki spoke in half-truths and moved like a shadow. Yet Thor also knew that the worlds were dying and pride would not save anyone. He stood before the giant machine, looked at the stolen soul light burning inside it, and drew in one long breath. The clash spread across Asgard in layers of smoke, thunder, and bright spirit fire. Loki climbed into the fate breaker and felt the stolen soul light race through its limbs like living water. He had thought the machine would obey his hand alone, but the core reacted to him in a way that was deeper and stranger. Every time he moved, the mech moved as if it knew him. Every time he reached for control, the machine answered with old, hidden instincts. That was the first twist, and it hit him harder than any enemy blow. The Fate Breaker was not just built from fallen realms and stolen power. It had been designed around a secret pattern, one that matched the roots of the world tree itself. They marched through Asgard as the realm itself began to buckle. Broken statues leaned under the wind, banners tore loose and flew like frightened birds, and giant defenders of the heavenly gates gathered around them in silent ranks. These were not ordinary soldiers, but divine warriors, shield bearers, rune menders, and storm riders, all trying to hold back collapse while their homes split apart above their heads. Some looked at Loki with rage because he had stolen from Valhalla. Some looked at Thor with hope because he was the strongest among them. Some looked at Freyja with relief because she always found the truth when others could not. When the roots of Yggdrasil finally rose before them, the air changed again and every sound became deep and heavy. The roots were huge, twisted, and alive with old light, and strange runes crawled over them like veins. At the center waited the hidden force, a bound spirit of fate with no single face, only layers of woven shadow and broken prophecy. It had fed on fear for ages, and it had used Odin's visions to keep the gods trapped inside a future it could control. Its motive was simple and cruel. If the gods could never choose, then the hidden force would rule every ending by default. It wanted a world of fixed outcomes because fixed outcomes could be owned. The roots of Yggdrasil glowed beneath the broken stone, and the light from them gave the root chamber a cold, living shine. Above that hidden chamber, Asgard still shook from the great strain of the last battle, and loose dust drifted down through thin cracks in the ground. Odin stood with his white hair falling over his armor, his single eye fixed on the deep dark below. Thor stood near him like a storm-given human form, red hair wild, shoulders square, and fists tight. Freyja watched in silence, blonde hair shining in the root light, her calm face showing no fear at all. They moved through the root chamber in a tight line, and every step carried them farther from the noise of Asgard and closer to the heart of the hidden danger. The chamber grew wider as they went, with roots thick as towers curling around old runes and cracked pillars. Blue light and gold light moved inside the bark like blood and fire, and shadow mist clung low across the floor. Freyja led the way with careful steps, her bright eyes scanning every mark in the stone. She was the one who could sense lies before they were spoken, and she felt something wrong here, something patient and hungry. Thor walked behind her, ready to smash through any trap, but even he kept his voice quiet. Before anyone could move, the shadow mist folded inward, and the chamber shook with a harsh, scraping sound like iron waking from a long sleep. Deep in the stone walls, hidden joints opened one by one, and the forbidden Fate Breaker mech rose from the dark like a giant made of stolen ruin. Dark iron armor covered its frame, with shard-like shoulder plates, massive hands, and broken bronze pieces fused into its chest. Rune joints glowed red and gray, and inside the chest frame, a stolen core burned with the first pull of the Valhalla soul light. The mech was not fully alive yet, but it had enough power to act, and that was enough to force everyone back. So Loki did the one thing that surprised everyone, including himself. He stepped forward into the beam instead of away from it. His boots burned with faint glowing symbols as he ran, and his torn cape snapped behind him. He did not attack the mech first. He reached for the stolen line of power and followed it back through the rune mist because his mind was faster than brute force, and this enemy had always been weak against cleverness. Odin shouted for him to be careful, but Loki was already inside the trap, reading it like a map. In the beam, he saw flashes of old visions, and inside them he saw the hidden force not as a monster, but as a swarm of broken futures. Silence fell hard after the clash, and for a moment, only the breathing of the gods could be heard. The Valhalla soul light floated free again, still shining, though weaker than before. Freyja lowered her hand and looked at Loki with new respect because she had seen the shape of his courage, and it was no longer the courage of a thief cornered by danger. It was the courage of a man who had chosen a side and meant to keep it. Thor gave him a rough nod, the kind that meant more than praise from anyone else. Odin stepped closer, heavy with thought, and he admitted the next truth that all of them needed to hear. Under the roots of Yggdrasil, the air stayed cold and heavy, while blue light drifted through the stone like quiet smoke. The root chamber of Yggdrasil felt older than any kingdom, and every sound seemed to travel for miles through the deep dark. Above that hidden chamber, Asgard still shook from the earlier clash, and far below, the stolen Valhalla soul light pulsed inside the broken frame of Fate Breaker. Thor stood with his broad red cape hanging still. Loki watched with sharp green eyes. Odin held his calm and tired gaze, and Freyja listened as if the stones themselves might confess a lie. The danger was now plain for all of them. Loki was the first to move, though no one had trusted him easily in the past. He was a lean man with black hair, pale skin, and a restless face that always seemed one thought ahead. His dark green and black armor caught the faint light in sharp lines, and the silver rune clasps at his chest flashed as he stepped toward the chamber wall. He had spent so long running from what he was, and now he had begun becoming what the worlds needed. That change mattered because he was the only one who had followed the hidden force through its lies long enough to understand its pattern. Odin, the old king with long white hair and a thick gray beard, did not argue. His single eye held the weight of storm light and distant visions, and his dark blue and gold robe moved beneath his heavy armor like a banner of age and command. He had known for some time that this battle was not only about stolen power, but about a broken chain of cause and effect that had been guiding the gods for too long. He told the others that the hidden force had fed on fear and on the false comfort of prophecy. It had whispered to many, made them believe that the future was fixed, and then used that belief to corner them. That was why the stolen Valhalla soul light mattered so much. Freyja stepped closer then, graceful but strong, her long blonde hair shining against gold and deep red armor. Her bright eyes were calm, but nothing escaped them, and she had the kind of presence that made lies feel weak before they were spoken. She had been watching Loki for much of the journey, not with kindness alone, but with careful judgment. She knew he wanted to prove himself, but she also knew that wanting was not enough unless it became action. Freyja told the others that the hidden force had already begun a second move. It had not only stolen the core, it had also prepared the Fate Breaker as a giant shell for its next step. Then the dark beneath the dark answered them. A low voice moved through the roots, not from one place, but from all around, as if the chamber itself had learned to speak. Shadow mist rose in layered waves, and inside it, the hidden force of fate took shape in pieces only. It had no fixed human body, only broken prophecy, red and gray light, and a sense of patient control that made the skin tight. It spoke with quiet certainty, and its words were simple enough to frighten everyone. It said that free will was only a story people told themselves, because every choice still followed a line already seen. Thor bristled at those words, and his storm pattern armor flashed as he raised one thick gauntlet. He was a man with bright red hair, a strong body, and a direct heart that did not bend easily. He had always believed that courage meant charging forward, but now even he could feel how deep this enemy reached. Thor said that fate was not a cage if strong hands could break the bars, and he moved toward Fate Breaker with a thunderous step. The giant mech reacted at once, lifting one massive arm, and the chamber shook as its dark iron fingers slammed down into the stone. Thor met that force head-on, and the clash sent a wave of dust and broken light through the roots. That was when the revelation hit them. Loki saw it first because he was used to reading broken things. He noticed that the mech was not drawing power only from the stolen soul light. It was also drawing from the roots around it, and the roots were not simply being harmed. They were being used as a map. The hidden force had hidden a second channel inside the chamber, a path that ran from the root chamber to every realm linked by Yggdrasil. If that channel completed, the stolen power would spread like a command through the whole world tree. Odin turned sharply, and his eye fixed on the roots as if he could see the trap within them. Freyja confirmed it at once. Odin ordered the others into motion, and for the first time in the chamber, all four moved as one team. Thor kept the Fate Breaker busy, striking and forcing it back whenever it tried to raise the channel wider. Freyja moved along the side roots, her eyes tracking the shimmer of false light, and she used calm precision to find the weak points in the rune joints. Loki, now steady and focused, did not hide behind words or tricks. He ran straight toward the hidden channel and used his own rune-marked boots to anchor himself on the glowing roots. Then he reached into the pulse of the stolen soul light and felt the hidden force pushing back through it, cold and endless. Using the silver rune clasps at his chest, Loki sent a sharp burst of counter-light through the channel, not to destroy it all at once, but to break its rhythm. The hidden force reacted with sudden anger, and the chamber filled with twisting shadow mist. The roots glowed brighter, then dimmer, then bright again, as if the world tree itself was fighting to breathe. Thor drove his shoulder into Fate Breaker and forced it away from the center of the chamber, while Freyja cut off the side flow with a clean strike of light from her hand. Odin lifted his voice not in rage but in command, and the sound carried through the roots like a warning to every realm. When the light settled, the chamber was not safe, but it was no longer lost. The Fate Breaker stood damaged and unstable, its shoulder plates cracked, its core flickering with trapped silver fire. The hidden force had been driven back for now, but its voice still lingered in the roots, soft and patient, promising another move. Thor breathed hard, ready for the next clash. Freyja lowered her hand, but her eyes stayed sharp. Odin remained calm, though the weight in his face grew deeper, because he knew the war had just become clearer and larger. Loki stood in the center of the broken light, and something in him had changed for good. He was no longer only the one who questioned every path. The roots beneath Yggdrasil were never quiet, and that was why the gods feared them. Deep below the bright halls of Asgard, the world grew colder, darker, and older with every step, until even Thor stopped speaking and listened to the soft hum inside the stone. Odin walked in front with his long white hair hanging over his dark robe, one eye fixed ahead as if he could see the next 10 turns before anyone else. Thor followed with his red hair blazing in the dim light, his broad shoulders tight with concern because the shaking above them was not fading. Odin did not waste words as they crossed under the lowest roots. He told them that the shaking above was not only from damage or strain, but from a pressure being pushed through fate itself. Long ago, he had seen many possible endings, and most of them failed because some power kept narrowing the road. That power was the hidden force of fate, an ancient spirit made of shadow, broken prophecy, and twisting rune mist, and it wanted order above all else. It did not care if order hurt the gods, the realms, or the people who lived under them. It believed that free will made everything weak, so it tried to pin the worlds into one fixed shape. They reached the first deep chamber where the roots opened into a wide, hollow space. Giant root walls arched around them, lit by faint gold and blue runes, while shadow mist drifted over the floor like a living warning. At the center stood signs of the machine before the machine itself appeared. Broken bronze plates were stacked near a dark frame, silver wire hung from hooked roots, and stolen soul light pulsed inside a sealed chest core like a trapped star. Loki stared at it and felt a strange chill, because the light was warm and noble, yet it had been forced into a shape that did not belong to it. That was when the battle turned strange, because the machine did not fight like a beast. It fought like an argument. Every swing of its massive arms sent visions through the chamber, showing each god a future where trust failed, where Asgard broke apart, where one wrong choice ruined everything. The hidden force fed on those fears and grew stronger with every doubt. Thor saw a vision of himself too late to save the halls above. Freyja saw a future where every lie won and every honest voice was buried. Odin saw a kingdom so tightly controlled that even wisdom had no room to breathe. Loki saw something worse. Then came the revelation that changed everything. The hidden force of fate was not only trying to control the realms, it was trying to restore something it had lost long ago, a broken order that had once kept all worlds silent and obedient. The soul light from Valhalla had not been stolen by accident. It had been taken because the force needed honored warrior spirit to wake the machine without destroying the roots. And the one who guided the theft was not a stranger. It was a former court voice from Asgard, a quiet servant who had fed information to the force because he feared chaos more than tyranny. That fear had helped build the entire trap. The root chamber of Yggdrasil stayed silent for only a moment, and that silence felt heavier than the battle before it. The giant roots above and below still glowed with faint blue and gold light, but the chamber now looked cracked, strained, and tired, like a heart that had beaten too hard for too long. Loki stood near the center of the chamber with his black hair hanging over his sharp green eyes, and his dark green and black armor still carried soot and dust from the fight. He had once watched danger from the edge and judged other people from a safe place, but now the shaking world above them had forced him to stop hiding behind ideas. He understood the problem with painful clarity now. Below the chamber, the world became colder and stranger. The roots of Yggdrasil filled the passage like giant ribs, each one glowing with old rune marks that flashed and faded like a warning. The hidden stair curled downward into a dark space where the air carried whispers without voices, and every footstep sounded too loud. At the front, Loki moved carefully, his lean body tense, his fitted gloves brushing the root wall when he needed balance. He was not leading because he was the strongest. He was leading because he had finally accepted that knowing the road and walking the road were not the same thing. The root chamber of Yggdrasil shook like a giant heart under the earth, and cold blue light rolled through the roots and stone. The chamber was vast, secret, and ancient, with thick roots twisting across the walls like living bridges. Shadow mist drifted low along the floor, and faint gold runes glowed in broken lines near the center. In that dark sacred space, the forbidden machine called Fate Breaker stood half awake, its iron frame lit from inside by the stolen Valhalla soul light. It looked like a giant warrior made from broken worlds, but its stillness was worse than any charge because it was listening. Thor tried to break the machine before it could settle deeper. He stepped forward, raised his hammer, and brought all his courage into one hard charge, but the floor split under him with a harsh blue flash, and a wall of force struck him back across the stone. He slid hard, boots scraping, and his cape flared like fire in a storm. The chamber answered with a deep humming sound, and more light leaked from the machine joints. Freyja shouted for everyone to spread out because she could already feel the pattern of the danger. She saw that the machine was not only waking, it was locking itself to the chamber through the roots beneath it. Loki moved first. He knew the machine would not stop for simple force, so he searched for the weakness in its rhythm. His green eyes tracked the glowing rune joints, the stone layer in the chest frame, and the silver wire wrapped around the core. He saw that every pulse from the stolen soul light was feeding the roots below, and every root pulse was feeding the machine back. It was a loop, and the loop was the lock. If he could break the rhythm, the machine might lose its grip. Freyja joined him without hesitation. She lifted her weapon and struck at the rune lines on the floor, not the machine itself, because she understood that the chamber was part of the weapon. The chamber changed as the heroes fought. The roots in the walls began to glow brighter, and the air filled with a low sound like distant thunder under ice. Fatebreaker opened its chest frame a little wider, and the Valhalla soul light burned hotter inside it, bright silver white with gold sparks drifting through the core. For one terrible moment, Loki saw a vision in the reflection of that light. He saw the world tree wrapped in glowing bands, every branch sealed, every path closed, every realm forced into the same still order. Then he saw the hidden force of fate standing inside the vision like a dark stain, not as a body, but as a promise of endless control. They moved together at last. Freyja cut a path through the rune mist by striking the glowing floor marks in a careful pattern, and each clean hit made the chamber tremble in a smaller, weaker way. Thor did not charge the machine again. Instead, he stood where the floor was breaking and used his hammer to hold the cracked stone apart long enough for Odin to reach the center roots. Loki darted between the pulses, his black hair whipping around his face as he climbed the edge of a root wall and looked for the hidden anchor point. At the center of the chamber, he found it. A thin silver spine of stolen magic had driven into the root network, and the soul light had wrapped around it like a chain. Loki grabbed the silver spine with both hands while Freyja held the rune lines open, and Thor slammed his hammer into the chamber floor beside the anchor, sending a shock through the binding. Odin spoke a single command in a voice that cut through the shaking stone, and the roots answered with a deep pulse. The chain around the soul light began to loosen. Fatebreaker shuddered hard, its massive limbs twitching as if it were waking from a nightmare. The hidden force of fate surged in anger, and the shadow mist thickened into a cold wave that tried to blind them all. For a moment, the chamber went dark except for the core of stolen light. The root chamber stayed silent for a long moment, and the silence felt heavy enough to press on the chest. Blue and gold light moved through the giant roots of Yggdrasil, while shadow mist hung low across the stone floor. Loki stood near the broken lock they had just exposed, with his black hair damp from the cold air and his sharp green eyes fixed on the dark space above. He was a man who never trusted a quiet room, because quiet rooms usually meant something was waiting. Odin stood beside him with his long white hair falling over his dark blue robe, his gray beard still, and his single eye cold with thought. Loki was the first to speak because he knew waiting would only help the enemy. He told the others that the hidden force of fate was not trying to destroy Yggdrasil in a simple way. It wanted control. It wanted to force every realm into one narrow path because it feared free choice would create chaos, war, and collapse. Odin answered at once, and his voice carried the weight of old regret. He said the force had once been made to guard the balance of the worlds, but it had twisted that duty into obsession. It had learned to believe that only one perfect future could save all things, and that any choice outside its vision must be crushed. They moved out through a narrow passage between roots that were thicker than tower walls. The chamber behind them faded into dim blue light, and the air grew colder as they climbed. Yggdrasil rose around them like a living world, its bark marked by ancient runes that pulsed faintly with warning. Every step made soft echoes that seemed too small for such a huge sacred place, yet the tree itself felt watchful, as if it knew the strangers inside it were walking toward a wound. Loki led the way because he could see the pattern in the strange marks along the roots. He noticed that the runes did not point randomly. The vision showed a vast web of light stretched through the branches of Yggdrasil. At its center hung the Fatebreaker, the gigantic forbidden mech built from broken realms, dark iron, shard-like shoulder plates, and a core of stolen soul light that shone like a trapped star. Its huge body stood half made and half awake, and each time it moved, the roots around it trembled. Around the mech floated the shape of the hidden force of fate, not as a person, but as a layered shadow with broken prophecy circling inside it. It whispered without a mouth, and the vision carried its meaning into their minds. It said the worlds were unstable, and free choice had only made them weaker. When the vision broke, the passage around them had changed. The roots now opened into a vast bridge of living wood that curved upward through darkness. At the center of the bridge stood a sealed root gate covered in silver wire, broken bronze plates, and rune scars that matched the lock they had already shattered below. The second lock had been waiting there the whole time, hidden in plain sight by illusion and by the force of fate itself. But it was not alone. Around the gate stood root guards made of bark, stone, and shadow mist, their shapes tall and rough, with hollow eyes lit by faint red sparks. They moved like tools that had been given just enough life to defend the cage. Odin then made the hardest choice of all. He said they could not all rush the gate at once because the hidden force wanted chaos. It wanted to split them, overload them, and turn their courage into noise. So he told Loki to take the center, Thor to hold the outer bridge, and Freyja to watch the runes and call out every change. Odin himself stepped toward the far side of the gate, where the shadow mist had grown thickest, because he could feel the force trying to hide there. Loki looked at him and knew this was not only strategy, it was trust. Odin was giving Loki room to lead. That mattered more than any weapon. The battle began fast. Inside the gate was a narrow chamber lined with more roots, and at its center sat another piece of the cage, a black ring wrapped around a small, trembling core of silver light. Loki did not have time to touch it because the moment it appeared, the hidden force changed shape again. It spoke through the roots, deeper and colder than before, and its voice finally carried a clear truth. It said the first lock had been bait because it wanted Loki to learn the pattern. It wanted him to believe that understanding would help him win because it needed him to walk into the final design by choice. That was the twist, and it hit harder than any weapon. Loki had not only found the pattern. The air inside the world tree felt colder now, and the roots around the heroes tightened like old hands gripping stone. Above them, the branches climbed into darkness, while faint rune light moved through the bark like slow lightning under skin. Thor stood at the front with his red cape hanging heavy. Freyja kept close with her calm eyes on every shadow. Odin watched in silence with his single eye full of hard knowledge, and Loki moved beside them with tense shoulders, black hair falling over his pale face as if even the dark could not settle around him. They had reached a hidden rise in the living trunk, and everyone knew what it meant. Loki was the one who had seen the pattern first, and he did not hide it now. He told the others that the enemy was not bold, and that was the key. It feared freedom because freedom would break its grip on prophecy, and if the realms could choose, then the Force could no longer guide every future like a chain. Odin listened with his stern face still, but his single eye sharpened at the truth. Freyja understood at once because she had spent too many years reading lies in the hearts of kings, spirits, and monsters. Thor only frowned because he wanted a foe he could smash, yet even he could see that fear could be a weapon if used with care. So Loki explained the plan in plain words. They climbed through a wound in the bark and entered the root chamber of Yggdrasil. The chamber was vast and low, and giant roots crossed the walls like the ribs of a sleeping giant. Ancient runes glowed in bands of blue and gold, while shadow mist curled close to the floor and hid small cracks in the stone. At the center stood the second lock, a towering ring of living wood and iron seals, and it shook in short, angry pulses as if something inside it was straining to breathe. Around the lock waited the root guards, silent figures made from bark, stone, and heavy shadow. They had rough humanoid shapes, hollow red eyes, and old rune marks carved into their limbs. They did not attack at first. It had no true body, only layered darkness, broken prophecy, and twisting rune mist that gathered into moving shapes. Red and gray light pulsed around it, and its voice came from many places at once, soft and sharp, like a whisper trying to become a command. It spoke of order, of balance, and of the pain that freedom always caused. It said the realms would tear themselves apart without guidance. It said choice was a lie that led only to ruin. Odin answered first, and his voice was slow and exact because he knew this enemy was built from old fears. He said that true order was not the same as chains. Freyja added that a future forced on others was not peace, only silence. Then the chamber shook and the second lock opened a little more, not enough to free anything, but enough to show what was behind it. Deep within the lock, the heroes saw the shape of Fatebreaker, the giant forbidden mech built from fragments of fallen realms. Its dark iron armor filled the gap like a wall, its shard-like shoulders scraped the inner roots, and its massive hands hung still as if waiting for a command. In its chest frame, the Valhalla soul light burned bright silver-white, with golden sparks drifting inside it like many honored spirits held in one shining core. That sight changed the air in the chamber. The realization made the chamber more dangerous in an instant. The root guards began to move, their heavy wooden limbs scraping the floor as they formed a wall between the heroes and the lock. The hidden force grew louder, and now its fear showed through its anger. It sent waves of rune mist that tried to press doubt into each mind. Thor felt a sudden pull to charge ahead, and his muscles tightened as if the chamber wanted him to make a reckless mistake. Freyja felt a sharp illusion trying to make her see Loki as a traitor again, a liar who would turn at the worst time. Odin saw a long path of broken outcomes, each one designed to make him choose the wrong branch. The hidden force snapped, the root guards lunged, and the chamber exploded into motion. Thor met the first wave with a brutal swing that sent bark and stone figures driven back across the roots. Freyja moved like a blade of light, crossing the floor with quick steps and striking the rune marks on the guards, making their bodies shudder and slow. Odin did not waste motion. He planted his weapon and spoke a command in a voice that sounded like a storm over frozen ground, and the old runes in the chamber answered him with a deep pulse. The floor trembled, the lock held, yet the hidden force was not finished. Together, they pushed the enemy back from the center of the chamber. Thor smashed the last guard in the first ring aside and made space. Freyja cut through a veil of mist that tried to blind the team. Odin drove his power into the lock and made the rune bands glow brighter. Loki watched the hidden force, then saw a small pattern in its movement, a repeated turn in the shadow mist that exposed the next step. The force was trying to drag the chamber into a false opening, a half-release that would let Fatebreaker wake without freeing the trapped soul light. That would let the machine move under the enemy commands and lock the realms into a single path. Loki shouted the warning at once. But the heroes also saw the cost of victory. The passage below was dark, and inside it moved a colder light than before, a thin line of silver that came from somewhere beneath the chamber. Fate Breaker had not been defeated. It had only been exposed. The Valhalla soul light still burned inside its chest, and that meant a sacred power from the honored halls was being used to wake a weapon of endless bondage. Odin stood very still when he saw that, because he understood the depth of the crime. Freyja lowered her hand, and her face became harder because she could feel how many lives the hidden force wanted to steal without ever spilling blood. Thor tightened his grip, ready for the next clash. Odin gave the next order, and his voice carried the calm of a ruler who had seen too much to panic. They would go downward and find the source of the silver light, but they would do it together. Thor led the way into the narrow passage. Freyja stayed at the rear to watch for illusions. Odin moved in the middle where he could guide them all, and Loki walked where every shadow could be seen. The chamber behind them kept shaking, and the hidden force now sounded smaller, angrier, and more afraid than before. That fear had become a wound, and the heroes had forced it open. Yet the path ahead was darker than before, because the truth of Fate Breaker was now plain. The inside of Yggdrasil was quiet, but it was not peaceful, because the world tree always sounded alive if anyone listened long enough. Great roots ran through the dark like sleeping giants, and faint rune light moved under the bark like slow lightning. The air in that hidden place felt old, heavy, and sacred, as if every choice made there would echo through all the realms. Thor walked first with his red cape dragging behind him because he wanted answers he could hit. Freyja followed with calm steps because she wanted the truth before the truth could harm them. Odin moved with careful strength because he already knew that this branch of the tree hid a warning. The next branch opened into a wide hollow where the wood had split into a natural hall. Ancient roots curved above them like arches, and silent root guards stood in the shadows with hollow red eyes. They were not alive in the normal way, yet they were not empty either. Each one had rough bark skin, stone joints, and heavy wooden limbs that moved only when the old runes told them to move. Thor took one step forward, and the nearest guard raised a thick arm. Freyja touched Thor on the wrist before he could charge because she could already feel the hidden rule of the place. These guardians were not defending the chamber with mindless force. The hidden force of fate did not reveal a face, but its presence spread through the chamber like cold smoke. Red and gray shadow mist gathered between the roots, and broken images flashed in the air around it. Thor saw battlefield fragments. Freyja saw lines of false prophecy. Odin saw old failures, one after another, as if the force wanted to weigh him down with every mistake he had ever made. Loki saw something worse. He saw a machine shape, huge and dark, built from fragments of fallen realms. The vision snapped into focus around him, and he realized the truth before anyone else said it out loud. The hidden force was not only guarding this chamber. Then the floor opened beneath the deepest roots, and the chamber below them came into view. It was a sacred chamber, but it had been wounded by use. Giant roots wrapped around a dark platform, ancient runes burned along the walls, and a core of bright silver-white light floated in the center like a trapped heart. The Valhalla soul light was there, still warm and shining, but half of it had already been drawn into a towering machine frame below. The machine was Fate Breaker, a gigantic forbidden mech built from broken bronze, dark iron, shard-like armor, and glowing rune joints. Its chest held the stolen light like a star trapped inside a cage. That revelation changed everything, because now they knew what the hidden force wanted and why it had waited so long. It wanted the realms to fear their own connections. It wanted every bond to feel like a chain. It wanted gods, mortals, and all living things to believe that unity only led to control. Loki saw the shape of the trap and made a choice that surprised even him. He told Thor to stop smashing the guards because their rage only fed the chamber. He told Freyja to guide the runes because her calm eyes could find the false lines. He told Odin to hold the old law in place because the chamber still remembered truth. As the silver glow settled across the root chamber, the old runes along the walls began to pulse in a steady rhythm again. The room was still dark, still dangerous, and still far below the upper branches, but it no longer felt owned by the hidden force. Freyja moved first, checking the chamber lines and the wounded roots because she understood that healing a place was also part of winning a war. She found several broken seals and quietly restored them with careful hands. Odin watched her work and explained that the world tree would remember this correction for a long time. He said the chamber had not been destroyed, only bent, and now it could begin to recover. The world tree rose around them like a living mountain, with vast roots curling through dark space and glowing veins of light moving under the bark. The air was cold, damp, and heavy with old power, and every sound seemed small beside the slow pulse of Yggdrasil. Below them, the root chamber had already closed behind stone and shadow, and the battered fate breaker was left behind, broken but not forgotten. That machine had nearly turned the battle in the enemy favor, and if the hidden force of fate found a way to repair it, the realms could still fall into control. Loki knew that danger clearly now, and that knowledge made his sharp mind quiet for once. He no longer wanted to win alone. Thor climbed first, with his bright red hair catching the faint gold light like fire in a storm. He was strong, stubborn, and direct, and he hated every secret path that forced him to wait. Yet even he had felt the fear in that chamber, because the root guards had been waking, and the stolen soul light had nearly been used to twist the tree itself. Behind him came Freyja, her long blonde hair flowing across her gold and deep red armor, her face calm even when danger pressed close. She wanted truth because lies had already hurt too many lives, and she mattered because she could see the hidden shape of a plan before it fully formed. The path opened into a wide root hall where giant arches of bark crossed above them like ribs of an ancient giant. Blue and gold light moved through the roots in slow waves, and the whole place felt alive, awake, and listening. Then the warning came. A low hum rolled through the walls, and the roots on both sides began to tighten like muscles. Root guards stepped out of the dark, their bark bodies tall and rough, with stone plates in their shoulders and hollow red eyes glowing inside shadow mist. They were not mindless animals. They were guardians made to obey old rules, and their duty was to stop anyone who carried forbidden power deeper into the world tree. Thor raised his weapon and moved to clash with the first wave, but Odin stopped him with one hand and a hard look. There was no need for reckless force yet. Freyja knelt and touched the root floor, reading the rune marks with quick, careful eyes. She found a simple pattern hidden inside the old design. The root guards could be slowed if their command path was broken, and the command path ran through the stolen Valhalla soul light. That was the second truth, and it made the stakes much worse. The bright silver-white energy had not only powered the fate breaker, it had also been used like a key, opening a path for the hidden force of fate to speak through old systems in the tree. So Loki stepped forward, and this was the moment that changed the air around him. He was still clever, still restless, and still ready to strike with a sharp idea, but now he spoke to the others instead of hiding his plan. He told Thor to draw the guards into the open space where they could not use the roots as cover. He told Freyja to follow the rune trail and find the true command node. He told Odin to watch for the hidden force of fate, because if it showed itself in a vision, only Odin could match it with his sight. Then Loki moved alone for a few breaths, slipping between root pillars with quick, silent steps. The twist came when Odin reached the inner chamber and looked into the dark knot. For a brief moment, the shadows peeled back and a form appeared inside them, made of broken prophecy and moving mist. It was not a king, not a warrior, and not even a creature with a true body. It was the hidden force of fate itself, an ancient presence that had learned to survive by making everyone else fear the future. It wanted control because free choice made its power weak. If the realms could choose their own path, then prophecy would no longer rule them, and the hidden force would lose the only thing that kept it alive. The root guards closed in again, their red eyes flashing through the mist, and the whole hall trembled under their heavy steps. Thor charged to hold the front, his red cape snapping behind him as he forced the guards back with raw power and stubborn courage. Freyja used calm speed, moving around the edges to cut the command lines in the bark with clean rune strikes, one after another. Odin raised his hand and called on stormlight from his single eye, not to destroy, but to reveal, and the hidden rune knot lit up in full view. Then Loki made the choice that proved his change. He did not rush to take all the glory. He took the smallest opening and used it for the whole group. The world tree moved around them like a living fortress, and its great roots shifted under dim blue and gold light. The root hall was silent, but it was not empty, because old magic still watched every step and listened to every breath. Loki stood in the fading glow with his black hair damp against his face, his pale skin tense, and his sharp green eyes fixed ahead. He wore dark green and black armor with silver rune clasps, and his torn cape brushed the stone floor as he fought to steady his breathing. Beside him stood Odin, a stern man with long white hair and a thick gray beard, his single eye heavy with stormlight and ancient thought. Odin lifted one hand and the other stopped as one. His voice was low and rough, yet steady enough to carry through the hollow roots. He said the hidden chamber was near, and the command knot would be inside the wall of the tree itself. He explained that the knot was not simple magic because it was a control seal made from stolen soul light and old oath threads. Whoever held it could guide the root guards, wake the fate breaker in short bursts, and send the tree into confusion. Thor frowned and asked why anyone would build such a thing under something as sacred as Yggdrasil. Odin looked forward for a long moment before he answered. The tree shifted again and a narrow passage opened ahead between two massive roots. The group moved into it at once, with Thor in front, Odin close behind, Freyja reading the shadows, and Loki slipping where the others could not. The passage was colder than the hall behind them, and the bark walls carried faint glowing veins like trapped lightning under skin. Every few steps, the roots twitched, as if the tree itself was warning them that something old and wrong had been buried here for far too long. Then they heard the sound of heavy wood scraping stone. From a side arch stepped three root guards, rough humanoid constructs made of bark, stone, and dark mist. As the last guard collapsed into splintered bark and drifting shadow mist, Freyja pointed to the wall. There, hidden inside a knot of dark roots, was a small sealed opening no bigger than a shield. A dim silver strand pulsed inside it, and that was the sign of the hidden command knot. Loki stared at it, and he felt his chest tighten because the knot was not only controlling the guards. It was also feeding a pulse toward something deeper, something huge and waiting. Odin said they had found the source of the command, but not the master behind it. That warning came true at once. The floor shook, and a heavy sound rolled through the passage like a giant machine waking in a dark room. Loki felt the old rush of anger rise first, because anger was easier than fear. He had spent too long believing that every trap had his name on it, and every bad turn was proof that the world wanted him to fail. But now that thought cracked because the others were here and the trap threatened them too. He looked at Odin, at Thor, and at Freyja, and he understood something he had not understood before. He could not win this by staying clever alone. He needed trust, even if trust felt like stepping onto thin ice. So he said the truth out loud. He told them that the hidden message was not random and that the enemy wanted them to split up. The root chamber of Yggdrasil lay in cold silence, deep beneath the world, where giant roots curled around ancient runes and shadow mist moved like breath. Loki, a man with black hair and sharp green eyes, stood with Thor, Odin, and Freyja at his side, and each of them knew the same terrible truth. If the hidden force of fate took control here, it could steer the whole future, and the realms would never be free again. Then the slow, cold light ahead grew stronger, and the root guards stepped from the darkness. They were bark and stone bodies with hollow red eyes built long ago to protect this chamber, but now they moved with stolen purpose. Odin, the stern one-eyed king with long white hair and a thick gray beard, recognized the hidden command knot glowing inside the wall, and he realized the enemy had used Valhalla soul light to guide the guards. That meant the force below was not only strong, but clever, patient, and ready to trap them through their own sacred defenses. Thor, the red-haired warrior with a broad cape and storm-heavy armor, charged first and smashed the nearest guards aside, forcing them back with raw power. Freyja, the blonde-haired woman in gold and deep red armor, watched the shadows closely and called out every false move before it could land. Loki saw the pattern at last, and the twist hit him hard. The new light was not a weapon at all, but a broken vision crystal, used by the hidden force of fate to show fake futures and turn fear into obedience. The enemy wanted them uncertain, because doubt was easier to command than steel. Loki stepped forward, no longer hiding behind anger or tricks, and he drove his rune blade into the hidden command knot. The knot cracked, the stolen light burst apart, and the root guards froze as if waking from a long dream. Below them, the fate breaker stirred, but now it had no clear guidance, no easy path, and no grip on the chamber above. Odin opened his eye wider, Thor held the line, and Freyja led the others through the clearing mist while Loki reached the chamber center and faced the final choice. He did not try to control fate anymore. He broke its chain instead, and for the first time, the world tree felt alive with hope again.